Deep in the heart of the Central American jungles, beneath a dense canopy of emerald green, lie secrets that have slumbered for over 1,000 years. Imagine entire cities swallowed by the earth, stone pyramids cloaked in vines, and grand plazas silenced by time, all abandoned by one of history's most brilliant civilizations, the ancient Maya. Their sudden disappearance remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas, a mystery that stirs the imagination and calls to the adventurer in all of us. We're drawn to these places not just for their scale or artistry, but for the profound sense of wonder they evoke, the haunting feeling that we're standing at the edge of a story only partly told. Today, we're setting out on a journey to explore 25 forgotten temples of the ancient Maya, structures so remote and richly layered with history that many haven't been fully studied, and some are known only to a handful of people. These aren't just piles of stone, they are monuments to human ingenuity, spiritual devotion, and a cosmic understanding that still leaves modern astronomers in awe. Each temple tells a story of kings who believed they spoke with gods, of astronomers who tracked the stars with breathtaking precision, and of a people who built thriving societies in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. And then, almost inexplicably, they walked away, leaving behind their homes, their temples, their very world. What happened to them? What secrets do these silent stones hold? As we venture into the overgrown ruins and climb the steps they once ascended, we'll uncover not just the architectural genius of the Maya, but the enduring human spirit that sought to reach for the heavens. This is more than a tour of ancient sites, it's an invitation to step into the mystery itself, to walk where few have tread, and to rediscover a civilization whose legacy is written in stone, waiting for us to listen. Our journey begins not with a single temple, but with an entire mountain crafted by human hands, lost for centuries in the sprawling rainforest of northern Guatemala. This is El Mirador, the lookout point, and at its heart stands the colossal La Danta pyramid complex. To call it a temple almost feels insufficient. It is a staggering artificial landscape, a testament to Maya ambition on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. Built during the pre-classic period, centuries before many of the more famous Maya sites even existed, La Danta is a titan of the ancient world. Its construction involves a three-tiered platform foundation that cleverly utilizes a natural hillside, upon which the main pyramid temple proudly sits. When you consider the entire structure from its base to its summit, La Danta rises over 230 feet high, but its true awe lies in its immense volume. It's estimated that the complex contains over 99 million cubic feet of construction material. This sheer mass means La Danta actually dwarfs the Great Pyramid of Giza, making it one of the largest ancient structures on the planet by volume. For generations, the sheer immensity of El Mirador was hidden, its full extent obscured by an impossibly dense jungle canopy. Archaeologists on the ground could only piece together fragments of its grandeur. That all changed with the advent of LiDAR technology, light detection, and ranging. By firing laser pulses from aircraft and measuring their return, researchers were able to digitally strip away the layers of vegetation, revealing the city beneath in breathtaking detail. What they discovered was revolutionary. The LiDAR maps showed that La Danta was not an isolated monument, but the vibrant core of a vast, sprawling city, connected to outlying complexes and other major structures by an extensive network of straight, raised causeways. These white plaster roads, known as sakbiab, essentially formed a sophisticated urban highway system, linking administrative centers, residential areas, and satellite communities. This revelation completely transformed our understanding of the pre-classic Maya, proving they were capable of highly organized, large-scale urban planning much earlier than previously believed. La Danta stands as a silent, moss-covered giant, a reminder that the jungle still holds secrets and that the Maya's first golden age was one of phenomenal achievement. Leaving the immense scale of El Mirador behind, our journey now takes us to a place where the artistry of the Maya is etched into every stone, a site that feels less like a ruin and more like a captured moment in time. We travel to the banks of the winding Usumacinta River, the natural border between modern-day Mexico and Guatemala, where the ancient city of Xultún clings to a grand loop in the waterway. Accessible only by boat, this remote location created a natural fortress for the city's rulers and, centuries later, became the very reason its treasures survived so beautifully intact. Here, deep in the rainforest, we find Temple 33, a masterpiece of Maya narrative sculpture and a powerful declaration of royal authority. This temple is intrinsically linked to one of Xultún's most celebrated rulers, Bird Jaguar IV, who ascended the throne in the mid-8th century. His reign was a period of intense artistic and architectural flourishing, a campaign to legitimize and glorify his rule through stone. Temple 33 was his personal monument, and its doorway is framed by some of the most exquisite carved lintels in the entire Maya world. These limestone panels are not mere decoration, they are a sophisticated form of political propaganda. One famous lintel depicts Bird Jaguar IV, resplendent in an elaborate feathered headdress and jade jewelry, preparing for a ritual dance. He holds a ceremonial spear, a symbol of his warrior status, while his wife, Lady Great Skull, stands beside him, offering a vision serpent helmet. This imagery is a powerful public declaration of his right to rule, his divine connections, and the crucial support of his royal lineage. But the temple's storytelling doesn't end at the doorway. It features a hieroglyphic stairway, a series of steps inscribed with glyphs that chronicle the history of Xultún's dynasty, tying Bird Jaguar IV reign to the glorious deeds of his ancestors. This literal rewriting of history in stone served to cement his legacy and justify his power for generations to come. Perhaps the most hauntingly intimate carvings, however, relate to the Maya bloodletting ritual. These were not acts of simple cruelty, but profound religious ceremonies central to their cosmology. The Maya believed that royal blood was a sacred offering, the most precious substance one could give to nourish the gods and maintain the cosmic order. Scenes show Lady Great Skull pulling a thorn-lined rope through her tongue, and Bird Jaguar IV drawing a stingray spine through his own penis, their blood offered to summon visionary serpents or ancestors from the spirit world. These acts, performed in the temple's dark inner chambers, were the ultimate demonstration of a ruler's piety and strength, proving their willingness to endure immense personal sacrifice for the sake of their people's survival. The remote silence of Xultún allows these stories to echo clearly across the centuries, offering a breathtakingly personal window into the minds of the Maya elite. Continuing our voyage along the Usumacinta River, we arrive at another powerful city-state, a place where the very art of reading Maya history was born. This is Piedras Negras, the Black Stones, named for the dark limestone used in its construction, and here we find Temple 013, a structure that stands as a monument to both architectural ingenuity and a profound shift in our understanding of the entire Maya civilization. Unlike the grand pyramids we've seen, 013 is celebrated for what lies beneath its floors, and within its walls a series of innovative, vaulted chambers that represent a daring experiment in Maya architecture. These rooms were constructed using the remarkable corbel arch technique, a method where each successive stone is cantilevered slightly inward until the gap at the top can be sealed with a single capstone. While it creates a distinct, narrow triangular space rather than a true rounded arch, this technique allowed the Maya to build stronger, more expansive interior rooms, moving beyond single dark chambers into multi-room structures that could house deeper mysteries. And the deepest mystery of Temple 013 was waiting right under the feet of the archaeologists who first studied it. Excavations revealed that this temple was far more than an administrative building or a ceremonial space. It was a royal necropolis, a final resting place for Piedras Negras' elite. Beneath the stone floors, researchers discovered a series of lavish tombs, their occupants surrounded by exquisite funerary offerings of jade, pottery, and intricately carved shells. But the most stunning discovery was the evidence pointing to one of these tombs belonging a powerful female ruler, a Ix-Ajah, or Lady Lord, of Piedras Negras. The presence of rich, feminine-associated grave goods, alongside inscriptions, suggested that women held significant political and religious power in this city, challenging older assumptions that Maya society was a purely patriarchal dynasty of kings. Temple 013 whispers the story of a queen, a leader who was buried with all the honors of her station, her legacy sealed within the stone. Yet, the greatest gift Piedras Negras and Temple 013 gave to the modern world wasn't a jade mask or a gold ornament. It was the key to a lost language. For decades, Maya glyphs were considered impenetrable, mere decorative symbols or astrological calendars. The prevailing academic view was that the Maya were peaceful astronomer priests, not a civilization of history keeping kings with complex narratives. This all changed in the 1960s, largely due to the work of a brilliant Russian scholar named Tatyana Proskoryakov. While studying the sequence of stone monuments called stelae at Piedras Negras, she noticed a pattern. The inscriptions weren't just recording esoteric dates, they were telling the stories of human lives. She realized that certain clusters of glyphs recorded events like births, accessions to the throne, and deaths of specific rulers. By cross-referencing these dates and events across multiple monuments, she successfully identified the historical timeline of Piedras Negras' dynasty. Her groundbreaking work, pioneered right here amongst these ruins, proved conclusively that the Maya glyphs were a fully functional writing system, capable of recording history, politics, and biography. Temple 013 was not just a silent tomb, it was a library, and Proskoryakov was the first person in centuries to learn how to read its books. This single intellectual breakthrough blew the doors wide open, transforming the Maya from a mysterious, vanished people into a known civilization with named individuals, documented wars, and recorded family lineages. Venturing further into the Maya world, we arrive at a site that embodies the very essence of their dualistic view of the universe, a place where the heavens above and the stories within are in perfect harmony. Deep within the northeastern Guatemalan rainforest lies Nakum, a city that reached its peak during the tumultuous Terminal Classic period, even as other great centers were falling into silence. At its heart stand two remarkable structures, known simply as Temple A and the Temple of the Frescoes. These are not just neighboring buildings, they are a matched pair, a physical representation of the Maya belief in balance and opposition, the fundamental duality of light and dark, life and death, the celestial and the terrestrial. Temple immediately captures attention with its unique and sophisticated architectural profile. Unlike the steep, towering pyramids meant to inspire awe, Temple is broader, featuring a wide central staircase that leads to a summit crowned not with a single dark chamber, but with a series of small, carefully arranged rooms. This specific layout is the first clue to its purpose. Researchers believe this complex served as a specialized astronomical observatory, a place where Maya priest astronomers could track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with incredible precision. The alignment of its doorways and windows likely framed specific celestial events, such as the path of Venus, a planet of immense warlike significance to the Maya, or the solstices, marking the sun's yearly journey. From this vantage point, these learned scholars could not only predict astronomical cycles, but also determine the most auspicious times for planting, harvesting, and conducting vital ceremonies, directly linking the cosmic order to the daily life of the city below. It was a machine of stone built to read the sky, a bridge between the human world and the divine clockwork of the universe. Just across the plaza, its twin, the Temple of the Frescoes, offers a stunning counterpoint. If Temple was a window to the heavens, this temple was a canvas for the myths that gave those heavens meaning. Its greatest treasure lies within, a series of rare and beautifully preserved polychrome murals. While time has faded some of their vibrancy, these paintings are a priceless glimpse into the Maya spiritual imagination, far more vivid than the static scenes on stone lintels. They depict elaborate scenes from Maya creation myths, showing a pantheon of gods engaged in the cosmic drama of bringing the world into being. You might see the maize god, a central figure of death and rebirth, triumphantly emerging from the underworld, or the heroic twins from the Popolva epic outwitting the lords of death in a symbolic ballgame. These weren't mere decorations, they were a form of sacred text, a visual narrative that taught and reinforced the core beliefs of Maya cosmology to those who entered this space. The paintings served to connect the people of Nakum to the ongoing story of creation, reminding them that their rituals in the temple below were a participation in the eternal struggles and triumphs of the gods above. The true genius of Nakum lies in the intentional relationship between these two structures. Their positioning is not accidental. Archaeoastronomers studying the site suggest that the alignment of Temple A and the Temple of the Frescoes with each other, and with features on the horizon, created a sacred geometry. On specific days of the year, perhaps a solstice or an equinox, the shadow cast by the astronomical observatory of Temple might have fallen directly upon the Temple of the Frescoes, bathing the home of the creation myths in a specific, timed beam of light. This would have physically manifested the connection between the observable cosmos and the mythological one. It meant that the gods painted on the walls were not distant ideas. They were active forces, their stories literally illuminated by the very celestial bodies they were believed to control. This intricate design reveals a civilization that saw no separation between science and spirit, between the movement of the stars and the meaning of existence. At Nakum, the universe was a whole, and these twin temples were its beating heart. Now we journey to a place that was far more than a ceremonial center. It was a strategic linchpin in the tangled web of Maya politics and commerce. Situated atop a steep escarpment overlooking the slow-moving waters of the San Pedro Martir River in modern-day Guatemala, the city of El Peruhuaca commanded a vital position. This was not an isolated city of priests. It was a bustling, fortified hub, a crossroads where trade routes converged and the ambitions of warring dynasties collided. Control this river, and you controlled the flow of goods like precious jade, obsidian, quetzal feathers, and cacao, the very lifeblood of Maya economy and power. And guarding this critical junction were three majestic temples, each with a story carved not just in stone, but in the very geopolitics of the region. The first of these, Temple 6, reveals a story of royal lineage and the profound Maya beliefs surrounding death and the afterlife. Excavations here unearthed one of the most spectacular royal tombs ever discovered in the Maya world, belonging to a powerful queen known as Lady Calakmul. She was a military ruler, a Kalumt or supreme warrior, of the Wak dynasty, and her burial was a testament to her immense status. Within the tomb, archaeologists found her remains adorned with an astonishing array of grave goods, but one object stood above all others: a perfectly preserved, intricately carved jade portrait death mask. This wasn't merely jewelry, it was a sacred object. The Maya believed jade embodied the breath of life and the verdant essence of water and maize. Placing this cool, eternal stone over the face of the deceased was a ritual act, meant to preserve the individual's identity and provide a vessel for their spirit as it journeyed through the treacherous underworld and toward rebirth. The discovery of Lady Calakmul's tomb fundamentally shifted our understanding, proving that women could wield ultimate military authority and be buried with honors equal to, or even surpassing, those of kings. Just a short distance away, Temple 7 tells a completely different story, one of sheer pragmatic power and defense. Its placement is its most revealing feature. Perched right on the edge of the escarpment, this temple offered a sweeping, unobstructed view for miles up and down the San Pedro River. This was no accident. Temple 7 functioned as a watchtower and a stark symbol of control. From this vantage point, sentries could spot approaching trade canoes or, more ominously, enemy war parties long before they reached the city's core. Its strategic height served as both an early warning system and a powerful psychological deterrent. Any traveler on the river would have looked up and seen the city's imposing silhouette, a clear message that they were entering the domain of a powerful and vigilant ruler. This temple reminds us that Maya spirituality was deeply intertwined with real-world power. You could commune with the gods in one temple, while simultaneously keeping a watchful eye on your earthly enemies from another. Completing this powerful triad is Temple 8, which served as the city's public record office, a place where military victories were immortalized for both the gods and the populace to see. The open plaza before this temple is studded with tall, carved stone monuments known as stelae. These were not simple markers, they were history books in stone. Commissioned by victorious kings, these stelae depicted rulers in full regalia, often shown standing triumphantly over bound captives. The glyphs accompanying these images provided a detailed narrative, the date of the battle, the name of the defeated rival king, and the specific rituals of victory that followed. By erecting these monuments in a public space directly associated with a major temple, a king like the one who ruled from El Perihuaca was doing several things at once. He was giving thanks to the gods for granting him victory, legitimizing his right to rule through demonstrated power, broadcasting his strength to both his own citizens and any visiting diplomats or traders, and issuing a blunt warning to potential rivals. Each stela was a piece of political propaganda, ensuring that a moment of military triumph would echo through the generations, long after the participants had turned to dust. Together, these three temples at El Perihuaca present a complete picture of Maya royal power: the sacred authority granted by the ancestors in Temple 6, the physical control of the landscape from Temple 7, and the boastful proclamation of dominance etched in stone at Temple 8. Leaving the fortified river kingdom of El Perihuaca behind, we now venture into the humid lowlands of northeastern Guatemala, to a site that completely rewrote the timeline of Maya artistic and literary achievement. For centuries, the sophisticated murals and complex writing system of the Maya were believed to be hallmarks of their later classic period glory. That all changed in 2001, when an archaeologist, brushing away dirt in a seemingly minor structure, broke through into a dark space and shone his flashlight on a wall. What he saw left him and the entire world breathless. This is San Bartolo, and the structure is known as Las Pinturas. The paintings, inside, preserved in stunning, vibrant color, were the oldest Maya murals ever discovered, dating back to approximately 100 years before the Common Era, a find that pushed back our understanding of Maya complex artistry by centuries. The murals themselves are a breathtaking narrative masterpiece, wrapping around the interior of a small, dark chamber. They depict the Maya creation myth, a story later recorded in the post-classic text known as the Popol Vuh, but here it is in vivid detail, painted over 1,000 years earlier. The central panel shows the resurrection of the maize god, a deity of fundamental importance symbolizing life, death, and rebirth. We see the god emerging triumphantly from a cracked mountain, interpreted as the underworld, surrounded by a nurturing court of deities and beautiful maidens who offer him sustenance. In another section, the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, are shown decapitating a turkey, a ritual act that mirrors their own ballgame victory over the Lords of Death in the underworld. The colors are astonishingly fresh deep Maya blue, brilliant reds, ochres, and blacks, all derived from meticulously prepared mineral and plant-based pigments. The artistry is sophisticated, the figures fluid and expressive, proving that the Maya had already developed a mature, complex artistic tradition during what was once considered a simple, formative era. These weren't primitive sketches, they were the work of master scribes painting their most sacred story, but perhaps an even more profound discovery was found alongside these images. Scattered throughout the mural, often floating near the heads of the figures, are columns of hieroglyphic text. These are not simple decorative marks. They are early, yet fully functional, examples of the Maya writing system. While the glyphs here are a more archaic form than those found at later sites, like Piedras Negras, they are unmistakably part of the same linguistic family. They include clear signs for dates, names of gods, and likely verbs describing the actions taking place in the paintings. This single finding shattered a long-held academic belief that writing developed very late in Maya society. The San Bartolo glyphs prove that the Maya were diligently developing their complex script for hundreds of years before they erected the famous stele of Tikal, or Palenque. This temple reveals the deep, ancient roots of their literary tradition, showing a sustained intellectual pursuit to record their history and beliefs. The most compelling mystery of Las Pinturas, however, is not what it contains, but how it was found. This magnificent gallery of art and writing was not abandoned to the elements, it was deliberately and carefully entombed. The Maya themselves, in a later building phase, constructed a larger pyramid directly over the top of this smaller, older temple, sealing it completely. They filled the entire chamber with a mix of rubble and earth, burying their own masterpiece in an act of intentional preservation. This was not an act of disrespect or forgetfulness. In the Maya worldview, buildings had life cycles and souls. To bury a sacred temple in this manner was to ritually retire it, to lay it to rest with honor while ensuring its potent sacred energy remained contained and protected for eternity. They understood the profound value of what they had created, and by entombing it, they gifted its survival to the future. The darkness that hid San Bartolo's Las Pinturas for over 2,000 years is what kept its colors so vibrant, allowing us today to peer directly into the spiritual heart of the ancient Maya at the very dawn of their civilization. Moving from the foundational myths of San Bartolo, we arrive at a temple that captures a critical moment of political theater, where myth was explicitly used to justify power on a grand scale. Our journey takes us to the site of Xultún, a relatively modest city nestled in the Guatemalan lowlands between two superpowers locked in a centuries-long Cold War, Tikal and Calakmul. For Xultún, geography was destiny, placing it directly on the front line of this epic struggle for dominance, and it is here, in a structure known simply as Building B, that archaeologists uncovered an artistic and political statement so powerful it forced us to rethink the entire narrative of this ancient conflict. The discovery came in 2013, when archaeologist Francisco Estradabelli and his team were excavating a tunnel left by earlier, less careful looters. As they carefully cleared the debris, their tools suddenly scraped against not more dirt, but something smooth and hard. What they revealed, perfectly preserved by the very rubble that had buried it, was a breathtaking 8-foot-long stucco frieze running along the exterior of the temple's base. Unlike the hidden murals of San Bartolo, this sculpture was designed for public view, a brilliant political billboard in plaster and paint. The colors were still vibrant, a deep red background making the figures, adorned in rich shades of green jade and white shell, pop with life. The scene it depicts is both mesmerizing and deeply symbolic. At the center are 3 human figures, seated cross-legged in a posture of serene authority. They are not mere mortals, they are depicted as god-kings, emanating from the gaping, wrenched open mouths of mountain spirits. These mountain monsters, with their serpent-like bodies and grotesque faces, represent Wit's monsters, the Maya personification of sacred hills and the portals to the underworld. This imagery of emergence is profoundly significant. It portrays these rulers not as simply being born or crowned, but as undergoing a divine apotheosis. They are literally being born from the very essence of the earth and the spiritual realm, transforming them into living deities whose right to rule is woven into the fabric of the cosmos itself. They are shown as the maize god, the central figure of resurrection, triumphantly reborn to bring order and prosperity. But this was far more than a generic religious image. The accompanying hieroglyphic text, carved neatly along the bottom of the frieze, provides the crucial political context. It names the central figure as a king of Xultún, but significantly, it also records that his accession to power was sponsored and overseen by the ruler of a distant, much more powerful city, the Snake King of Calakmul. This was a bombshell revelation. For decades, the Tikal-Calakmul rivalry was understood through military conquests and battles documented on stelae. The discovery of the Xultún frieze revealed a far more subtle and sophisticated strategy of empire building. Calakmul wasn't just defeating its enemies on the battlefield. It was engaging in a form of political soft power, installing loyal vassal kings in strategically located cities like Xultún, which sat right on Tikal's doorstep. By funding the construction of this magnificent temple and its propaganda frieze, the Snake King of Calakmul was making a very public investment. He was providing the material means for his vassal to display his own divine legitimacy, thereby ensuring the loyalty of Xultún's population. In return, Calakmul gained a powerful ally, a buffer state, and a military outpost that could threaten Tikal from a dangerously close range. This finding completely upended the traditional view of this Maya rivalry. It showed that Calakmul's hegemony was built as much on shrewd diplomacy, economic incentive, and ideological coercion as it was on sheer force. The frieze at Xultún's Building B is a masterwork of political spin, a stone and stucco testament to a time when a king, backed by a foreign power, used the language of gods and creation myths to secure his throne and project the influence of an empire. Leaving the political theater of Xultún behind, we now push even deeper into the remote northeastern Guatemalan rainforest to a discovery so unexpected it was made by a single looter's trench. Our destination is Xultún, a sprawling, largely unexcavated city whose name means "end of the stone." For decades, it was known mainly to looters, its immense size a promise of lost treasures. But in 2010, a team of archaeologists decided to follow one of those illicit tunnels, not knowing it would lead them to a time capsule that would radically alter our perception of Maya intellectualism. At the end of that narrow passageway, buried under centuries of rubble, they found a small, unassuming structure. This is the Temple of the Night Sun, a single room that contains the oldest Maya astronomical charts ever found, predating the famous Dresden Codex by over 500 years. Stepping into this cramped space is like entering the personal study of a Maya scientist. The walls, once brilliantly painted, are covered in intricate figures and calculations. To your left, you see three male figures, each with a distinct personality. One is an elderly, powerful man depicted in rich black pigment, adorned with a royal headdress and a single feather. He is named Older Brother Obsidian, and he is likely the town's sage or a revered elder scribe. Next to him sits a much younger man, the Younger Brother Obsidian, perhaps his apprentice or junior colleague. And on the opposite wall, another figure, a powerful individual in an elaborate headdress of feathers and jade, is identified as the site's ruler. But he is not shown in a typical pose of conquest or ritual. He is seated, engaged in the act of writing. This is a stunning depiction. It shows the king not just as a warrior or a shaman, but as an active participant in the scholarly pursuit of knowledge, his authority derived in part from his intellectual prowess. These are not anonymous priests. They are portraits of individuals, a scientific team whose work was deemed important enough to be immortalized on the walls of their workplace. But the true revolution of this room is not the people, but the numbers that surround them. Covering every available surface are columns and columns of black and red glyphs. These are not historical narratives or mythological stories. They are complex mathematical calculations. The scribes used these walls as a giant blackboard, painstakingly working out celestial cycles. One chart meticulously tracks the phases of Venus, the brilliant morning and evening star that the Maya associated with war and upheaval. Their calculations for its 584-day cycle are incredibly precise, accurate to within a mere 2 hours over the entire period. Another set of numbers charts the 480-day cycle of Mars, a level of astronomical observation not previously confirmed for the Maya this early. There are also complex calculations for lunar cycles, and what appear to be attempts to correlate these planetary movements with their sacred 260-day calendar, the Xultún. This discovery completely shatters the old timeline of Maya scientific development. Before Xultún, our best evidence for this advanced, mathematical astronomy came from bark paper books like the Dresden Codex, which date to the post-classic period, just a few centuries before the Spanish arrival. The Temple of the Night Sun proves that this sophisticated, long-range calendar tracking was not a late invention. It was a well-established practice centuries earlier, during the classic period's height. This small room was a functioning observatory and calculation office, a place where scholars were compiling data that could predict celestial events for thousands of years into the future. The presence of these charts in a humble, utilitarian space, rather than in a grand ceremonial temple, suggests that this advanced mathematical astronomy was an integrated, ongoing part of Maya intellectual life, used for practical purposes like scheduling rituals, planning agricultural cycles, and even determining the most auspicious times for warfare. The Temple of the Night Sun gives a human face to Maya science, showing us the very scholars behind the calculations, forever captured in the act of unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. Deep in the dense rainforest of northwestern Guatemala, the ruins of La Corona lay hidden for centuries, a city that might have remained just another dot on the map of Maya obscurity, if not for a trail of looted artifacts that led archaeologists to one of the most significant political discoveries of the era. The story of Temple 5Q1 begins not with a dramatic excavation, but in the back rooms of international art galleries. In the 1990s, a series of exquisitely carved stone panels, depicting elegant royal figures and lengthy hieroglyphic texts, began to appear on the black market. Their style was unique, and the historical details they contained were explosive, but their origin was a complete mystery. Looters, seeking to maximize profit, had broken the panels from their original setting and gave the site a cynical code name, El Site Q, a placeholder for an unknown location. For years, scholars could only study these Site Q texts in photographs, knowing they held crucial pieces of the Maya historical puzzle, but unable to place them in their proper context. The hunt was on to find the source of these carvings, to reunite the text with its temple. The breakthrough came thanks to the meticulous work of epigraphers who painstakingly studied the glyphs on the looted panels. They noticed repeated mentions of a previously unknown, cryptic royal title, the Lord of Five Cowls. A cowl was a sacred scepter held by Maya kings, a symbol of their divine authority. This specific title became the crucial clue. When archaeologists finally pinpointed the location of La Corona and began proper excavations, they found the very same title inscribed on monuments still in situ. The mystery of Site Q was solved. It was La Corona all along, and the specific structure that had been so violently plundered was Temple 5Q1. The looted panels were its doorway lintels, violently ripped from their frames. This temple, therefore, represents a triumph of modern archaeology, a case where the destructive act of looting was ultimately counteracted by scholarly detective work, allowing the temple's full story to be told even after its physical desecration. But what was that story? The texts from 5Q1 revealed that La Corona was far more than an independent city-state. Its strategic location made it a critical pawn in the high-stakes geopolitical game between the two superpowers of the Maya world, Tikal and Calakmul. The temple's inscriptions are a detailed chronicle of diplomacy and survival, written in stone. They show that the kings of La Corona, who referred to themselves as Holy Lords of Sac-Nict, navigated this dangerous landscape not through military might, but through brilliant and shrewd political maneuvering. They became masters of the strategic alliance, and their most powerful tool was marriage. The temple records a series of high-stakes diplomatic marriages, where princesses from the mighty snake dynasty of Calakmul were sent to La Corona to marry its local rulers. This was not a simple romantic union, it was a calculated political act. For Calakmul, it was a way to cement the loyalty of a strategically vital ally located perilously close to their archenemy, Tikal. By placing a woman of their own royal blood on the throne as a queen in La Corona, the Snake Kings ensured a pro-Calakmul orientation for generations, creating a loyal buffer state and a military outpost. For the local kings of La Corona, this arrangement was their guarantee of survival and a massive boost to their prestige. By marrying into the most powerful dynasty in the region, they gained a powerful external patron. The texts show these local rulers eagerly adopting the grandiose titles and propaganda of their mighty sponsors, using their connection to the Snake dynasty to bolster their own legitimacy in the eyes of their subjects and their neighbors. Temple 5Q1 was the stage where this political theater was performed. Its carvings publicly celebrated these unions, showing the local king alongside his powerful Calakmul bride, their partnership blessed by the gods and sanctioned by the Supreme Snake King. This temple was a billboard broadcasting a clear message. We are under the protection of a great power. Cross us at your peril. The lavish ceremonies commemorating these marriages, likely held in the plaza before this very temple, were designed to impress visiting dignitaries and reinforce the social and political bonds of this crucial alliance. La Corona, through the wisdom recorded at Temple 5Q1, teaches us that Maya politics were as much about carefully orchestrated marriages and clever diplomacy as they were about battlefield glory. Now, shifting our focus from the intellectual calculations of Xultún, we travel to a place that rewrites the very definition of a Maya temple, a site where commerce was king and the gods of trade held sway. Our journey takes us to the banks of the Rio La Pasión in Guatemala, to the city of Calakmul, the place of serpents. Unlike the towering ceremonial centers we've explored, Calakmul is an astounding anomaly. It boasts no grand pyramids piercing the jungle canopy. Instead, its heart is a sprawling, majestic, two-story complex known as the Royal Palace, and integrated directly into this labyrinth of power is the structure we call Temple 13. This was not a temple to reach the heavens, It was a temple of earthly abundance, a nerve center for one of the most extensive and sophisticated riverine trading networks in the Maya world. Temple 13 reflects this unique purpose in its very architecture. Forget steep stone staircases leading to dark sanctums. This temple is part of the palace itself, a series of ornately decorated rooms and courtyards designed for opulence and business, not esoteric ritual. Its facades were once covered in intricate stucco sculptures and murals, not depicting gods emerging from mountains, but likely celebrating the wealth and influence of the merchant nobility who operated here. The building's design facilitated movement and interaction, with wide doorways and open spaces perfect for negotiation and the display of goods. This was a palace temple, a place where economic power was itself a form of divine right, and where the ruling class likely venerated deities of trade, travel, and wealth. The lifeblood of Cancane's power was not military might, but its unparalleled control of a critical resource, water. The city's sophisticated water management system was a marvel of engineering, essential for both daily life and its industrial output. At the heart of this system was a meticulously constructed network of stone-lined canals and aqueducts that channeled fresh water from nearby springs directly throughout the palace complex and the city's workshops. These weren't just simple ditches. They were carefully engineered with settling tanks to filter debris and control water pressure. This guaranteed a constant, clean supply of water for drinking, bathing, and, most importantly, for the specialized industry that made Cancun famous, jade working. Within the palace grounds, archaeologists have uncovered extensive workshop areas dedicated entirely to the craft of jade. This is where Cancun's wealth was literally manufactured. The workshops are littered with every stage of production: massive, rough boulders of raw jade imported from distant mines in the Motagua River Valley, stone saws and drills used to cut and shape the stone, grinding stones of varying grit for polishing, and countless fragments of finished and unfinished pieces. Here, master artisans transformed the rough green stone into exquisite works of art: delicate beads, ornate ear spools, pendants carved with royal portraits, and ceremonial celts. These items were the ultimate status symbols in the Maya world, worn by kings and queens to display their divine connection and immense wealth. Cancun functioned as a primary production and distribution hub, controlling the flow of this precious commodity from source to consumer, cementing its power through economic monopoly rather than military conquest. This thriving, wealthy center makes its ultimate fate all the more shocking and mysterious. Unlike other Maya cities that show a long, slow decline, Cancun's end was swift, brutal, and utterly unexpected. The evidence is etched in stone, or more precisely, in the lack of it. Throughout the palace and workshop areas, archaeologists found numerous unfinished jade pieces and uncarved stone monuments. It appears that work stopped abruptly, in the middle of a normal day. This sudden abandonment is a haunting snapshot of a catastrophe frozen in time. The most chilling clue was discovered in the city's sacred cenote, a natural sinkhole. The remains of dozens of individuals, including members of the royal family, thrown into the water. The evidence points to a single, devastating event, a surprise attack, likely by a rival polity that bypassed Cancun's lack of defensive walls. The city's greatest strength, its open, trade-friendly design, became its fatal weakness. The attackers seem to have systematically executed the royal court and the master craftsmen, the very source of the city's power, effectively decapitating the state and destroying its reason for being in one bloody stroke. The unfinished carvings in Temple 13 stand as silent, poignant monuments to a vibrant economy and a unique way of life that ended in a single, terrible day. A stark reminder that even the greatest wealth was no guarantee of security in the volatile world of the ancient Maya. Leaving behind the shattered dream of Cancun, we now journey to a place where the fear of a superpower literally shaped the landscape and gave rise to a temple of dazzling artistic splendor. Perched on a high escarpment just 23 kilometers, a mere stone's throw in the grand scheme of the Maya world, from the mighty city of Tikal, lies El Zotz. Its name in modern Spanish means the bat, for the immense colony that erupts from a local cave each dusk, but its ancient name was Pachin, fortified sky. And that name tells you everything you need to know about this city's existence. Elzats lived in the long shadow of its colossal neighbor, and its entire identity was forged in a delicate balance of reverence for and resistance against Tikal's overwhelming power. The heart of this defiant kingdom is the structure known as the El Diablo Pyramid, a funerary temple that guards one of the most spectacular and intact royal tombs ever discovered from the early classic period. The story of its discovery reads like something out of an archaeological thriller. In 2010, a team led by Stephen Houston of Brown University was excavating a small tunnel dug by looters at the base of the pyramid. The looters had given up, assuming the structure was solid, but Houston's team noticed something the thieves had missed: a faint, almost imperceptible shift in the mortar between the stones. They carefully removed a single loose block, and behind it was not more rubble, but a void and the unmistakable smell of decaying organic matter and wet plaster, the scent of a sealed tomb. What they found inside was a time capsule, a burial chamber untouched for over 1,600 years. This was the resting place of the city's founder, a king who history now knows as King Pachin himself. The contents of the tomb were breathtaking in their richness and preservation. The skeleton of the king, likely in his 50s, lay surrounded by an array of exquisite offerings meant to serve him in the afterlife. There were beautifully painted ceramic vessels, some still containing the remnants of food and drink for his journey. He wore a belt adorned with shell and jade carvings that tinkled like bells, and his body was accompanied by the skeletons of 6 sacrificed children, a grim testament to his supreme status. But the most extraordinary finds were the fragile, organic materials that so rarely survive the centuries of humidity. The team discovered the remains of carved wooden staffs, pieces of fine textiles, and most remarkably fragments of what might be the oldest Maya books ever unearthed. These were codices, folding books made of fig bark paper, their pages coated with a thin layer of white stucco and painted with glyphs and illustrations. While too delicate to unfold, the fragments suggest these were almanacs or ritual texts, the very tools of a shaman king's power, buried with him so he could continue his sacred duties in the underworld. It was a librarian's dream and a historian's windfall, providing a priceless, tangible connection to the Maya literary tradition. The El Diablo Pyramid itself was more than just a magnificent tomb. It was a calculated political statement written in stone and stucco. Built in stages directly over the king's burial chamber, the temple was designed to be seen from afar. Its summit was crowned with a massive, intricate stucco frieze, one of the most complex and well-preserved from the Maya world. This frieze was a riot of color and symbolism, depicting a giant, animated mask of the sun god as he transitions through his daily cycle from a fierce, shark-toothed entity at noon to a jaguar-like representation of the night sun as it travels through the underworld. Flanking this central deity were seated figures of divine rulers, their bodies emerging from serpents and flowers, all painted in brilliant shades of red, blue, and green. This vibrant facade was a bold, unmissable declaration of divine kingship. It proclaimed that the ruler buried within was not just a man, but a being who had undergone apotheosis, merging with the sun god himself to become an eternal protector of his people. And this gets to the very core of why Elzats and the El Diablo Pyramid existed where they did. That strategic position on a high escarpment, looking directly toward the menacing silhouette of Tikal's temples on the horizon, was no accident. This was a fortified sky in every sense. The temple functioned as both a spiritual stronghold and a literal watchtower. Sentries posted at its summit would have had an unparalleled view of the entire territory between the two cities, a vital early warning system against any military advance from the great power to the east. The grandeur of the temple's art and the richness of the founder's tomb were essential tools of statecraft. By creating a local dynasty with such overt divine symbolism and wealth, the lords of Elzats were building their own legitimacy in the eyes of their populace, giving them a reason to resist absorption into Tikal's sphere. They were crafting a separate identity, a local pride strong enough to stand firm against the gravitational pull of a neighboring giant. The El Diablo Pyramid is a masterclass in ancient political resistance, a beacon of art and power built in defiance of an empire, ensuring that the story of its founder would never be forgotten. Our path now leads us away from the shadow of empires and into the very dawn of Maya ceremonial life, to a place where the foundational principles of their civilization were first being codified in plaster and stone. We arrive at Xultún, a name meaning 8 stone, for the early stela found there, and we focus on a structure of profound simplicity and ancient power, Temple E7 sub. This is not a towering pyramid but a low, square platform, and its immense significance lies in its pristine preservation. Unlike almost any other early Maya structure, E7 sub retains its original facade, allowing us to see not a crumbling ruin, but a living portrait of Maya religious thought from over 2,000 years ago. The temple's most stunning feature is the set of enormous, polychrome stucco masks that flank its central staircase. These are not the realistic portraits of kings we saw at Xultún. These are the faces of gods themselves, or perhaps deified mountain spirits known as wits. 2 primary masks stare out from the platform's sides, their features both mesmerizing and imposing. One represents a solar deity, associated with the east and the life-giving dawn, its visage marked by symbols of light and vitality. Its counterpart, facing west, is a fearsome nocturnal being, linked to the setting sun, the underworld, and the darkness of night. These masks were not hidden away. They were the first thing a worshipper would see, a bold and colorful declaration of the Maya cosmos. The entire temple platform was likely seen as a sacred mountain, a man-made wits, and these masks gave that mountain a face, transforming a simple architectural space into an animate, spiritual entity. To stand before them is to witness the moment abstract belief became concrete, public art. This temple's genius, however, extends far beyond its stunning artwork. Xultún is arguably the birthplace of a concept that would define Maya urban planning for a millennium, the astronomical alignment group. Just a short distance from E7 sub, on the eastern side of a grand plaza, stand 3 smaller temples arranged in a neat row. From a specific vantage point, likely a platform or the doorway of another structure, these 3 temples performed a miraculous function. During the solstices and equinoxes, the sun would rise directly over each one in turn. The northernmost temple marked the sunrise at the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The southernmost temple corresponded to the winter solstice sunrise. And the central temple perfectly aligned with the sunrises on the spring and fall equinoxes, the 2 days of perfect balance between light and dark. This was the Maya calendar made manifest in stone, a gigantic, immovable solar observatory that allowed priest astronomers to precisely track the passing seasons with unwavering accuracy. This system was absolutely critical for a society whose survival depended on agriculture. Knowing exactly when the rains were due, when to prepare the fields for planting, and when to expect the harvest was a matter of life and death. The Xultún Alignment Group provided this vital information with ritual grandeur, turning a practical necessity into a public religious spectacle. The entire community could gather in the plaza to witness the sun god affirming the cosmic order by rising exactly where the priest said he would, thereby reinforcing their spiritual and political authority. This elegant triad of temples became the blueprint for city planning across the Maya world. From the great acropolis of Tikal to the remote centers of the Palenque, we see this model repeated again and again. It was a testament to the power of a good idea, a way to organize space that connected the heavens to the earth, the gods to the people, and the calendar to daily life. Temple E7 sub itself represents a specific, early moment in the evolution of Maya architecture, a style known as the pre-classic period. Before the soaring pyramids of the classic era, Maya construction favored these broad, low platforms. They were essentially elevated stages for public ritual, designed to be seen from the ground level by a gathered audience. The focus was on the horizontal display of power and symbolism, like these giant stucco masks, rather than the vertical aspiration of climbing a pyramid to reach the gods. E7 sub is a perfect, preserved snapshot of this architectural philosophy. It shows us the template from which everything else would grow. The later, more famous pyramids did not replace this idea. They built upon it literally and figuratively, stacking these broad platforms on top of one another to create the iconic stairways to the sky that define our modern image of the Maya. At Xultún, we are privileged to walk around the very prototype. to see the origin point of a grand architectural tradition that would dominate the landscape for centuries to come. Venturing further into the Maya lowlands, we arrive at a city whose very name evokes the bitter taste of warfare and the scent of burning copal incense. This is Naranjo, a powerhouse that rose to prominence not through slow diplomacy, but through the relentless force of its military might. And at the heart of this warrior kingdom stand two temples, locked in a strategic and symbolic embrace that tells a story of conquest, cruelty, and the cold calculus of political power. These are temples 16 and 17, a paired complex that functioned as the city's central nervous system for warfare, a place where victories were proclaimed, captives were paraded, and the brutal theater of state-sponsored violence was performed for all to see. The most striking feature of this complex is the pair of monumental hieroglyphic stairways that cascade down the fronts of each temple. These are not mere architectural flourishes. They are the most detailed and boastful military records ever erected by the Maya. Each step is a chapter in a sprawling stone epic, meticulously carved with glyphs that name dates, list vanquished cities, and describe the specific tactics used in each campaign. One famous section, for instance, describes how the king of Naranjo, Itsamnaj Kawil, orchestrated the axing of the city of Utes, a particularly vivid and brutal term for its destruction. These stairways were public archives of terror, designed to be read and understood by visiting dignitaries, allied lords, and a subdued local population. To ascend these steps was to literally walk over the names of conquered enemies, a powerful physical metaphor for Naranjo's dominance. The message was unambiguous: cross us, and your city's name will be carved into our stairs for eternity. Lying directly between these two temples of triumph is a space dedicated to the final, fatal act of this military drama, a ritual ball court. In the Maya world, the ball game was far more than a sport. It was a reenactment of cosmic struggle, most famously the story of the hero twins defeating the lords of the underworld. But at Naranjo, this mythology was weaponized for political terror. This court was the stage for the sacrifice of high-status prisoners of war, often the very kings and nobles named on the adjacent stairways. After a rigged ritual game, the captives would be forced to reenact the mythical defeat of the underworld gods. They were then ritually executed on the court, their death serving as the ultimate offering to the gods and the ultimate humiliation for their defeated people. The strategic placement of this ball court between the two temples was a masterstroke of psychological warfare. A visitor would see the records of victory on the stairs, then immediately witness the grisly fate that awaited those who dared to oppose Naranjo's rulers, creating an atmosphere of overwhelming intimidation. The driving force behind this relentless campaign of conquest was one of the most formidable figures in Maya history, a woman known as Lady Six Sky. She was not a native ruler of Naranjo, but a princess sent from the distant superpower of Calakmul, likely as part of a strategic political marriage to secure an alliance. Upon her arrival, she effectively took control of the city, ruling as regent for her young son, Kayaktilu Chan Chok. Her problem was one of legitimacy. Her son was a child with a foreign mother, and his right to rule was far from secure in the eyes of Naranjo's nobility. Her solution was as brilliant as it was brutal. She would legitimize his rule through a constant, overwhelming display of military success fought in his name, even though he was just a boy. Temples 16 and 17 were the central platform for this propaganda campaign. The battle scenes carved on their walls and the victories detailed on their stairways were commissioned by Lady Six Sky, and they consistently show her young son as the central military leader, the triumphant hero receiving the submission of bound captives. In reality, these campaigns were almost certainly planned and led by her generals, but the art tells a different story. It shows the boy king, under the watchful eye of his powerful mother, fulfilling the most important duty of a Maya ruler, providing victory and captives for sacrifice. By associating his name so publicly and relentlessly with success on the battlefield, Lady Six Sky manufactured an aura of divine mandate and invincibility around him. These twin temples were her most powerful weapons, not just for recording history, but for writing it, crafting a narrative of a powerful, God-supported dynasty that brooked no dissent. They stand as a stark testament to how art, architecture, and violence could be woven together to build a throne for a child king. Moving into the turbulent Pitaxpatan region, a landscape fractured by incessant warfare, we find a temple that served as a city's final, desperate attempt to shout its history into the void before the darkness fell. This is Tamariндito, and its defining monument is the hieroglyphic stairway of Temple 18, a breathtaking cascade of 270 steps, each one carved with a chapter of the city's story. Unlike the boastful victory monuments of Naranjo, the narrative here is one of survival, resilience, and ultimately, a heartbreakingly direct account of a civilization's end. This stairway is the longest known Maya text in the entire region, an epic in stone that was the city's last great act of civic pride before it was swallowed by the chaos of the 9th century collapse. The stairway's primary purpose was to anchor the ruling dynasty in a glorious past, a vital tool for legitimacy in a time of extreme instability. The glyphs begin by recounting the mythical origins of the city's patron gods and the founding of its royal lineage, tracing a direct, unbroken line of succession from these divine ancestors to the current ruler. This was a powerful political statement, a declaration that the king sitting on the throne was the rightful heir to a legacy ordained by the gods themselves. As you ascend the stairs, the text moves from mythology into documented history, listing the accessions, major rituals, and military victories of each successive king. It's a dynastic resume, meticulously carved for both the populace and rival powers to see, asserting that Tamariндito's authority was ancient, legitimate, and divinely sanctioned. In a region tearing itself apart, this stone chronicle was a bulwark against the rising tide of doubt and rebellion. But the story takes a dark and dramatic turn as the glyphs near the top steps, moving from foundational history into contemporary crisis. The text becomes a grim chronicle of the civil warfare that engulfed the Pitaxpatan. It details a particularly devastating conflict with the city's arch-rival, the nearby fortified center of Das Pilas. The stairway describes how Tamariндito, as part of a coalition of cities, eventually succeeded in sacking and burning Das Pilas, toppling its cruel and ambitious dynasty. This was a moment of hard-won triumph, a victory that should have secured Tamariндito's future for generations, yet the inscription carries a tone of exhaustion rather than jubilation. The victory proved Pyrrhic. The region had been bled dry by decades of constant fighting. The agricultural fields were fallow, trade routes were severed, and the social contract between rulers and ruled had been broken by the relentless demands of war. The final, haunting inscription on the uppermost step is what makes Temple 18 utterly unique in the entire Maya world. It is not a record of a new king's accession or a prediction of future glory. It is a simple, stark, and devastatingly direct statement. It records the date that the city was abandoned. The glyphs state that on a specific day in the Maya calendar, the Holy Lord, the Divine King, simply left. He departed from Tamariндito. This is not a euphemism for death in battle. It is a clinical recording of the end. The ruler, the very embodiment of the city's divine covenant, gathered what he could and walked away, leaving his palace, his temples, and his people behind. This final act of inscribing the abandonment is perhaps the most poignant element of all. In the midst of this catastrophe, someone, perhaps the king himself, or a loyal scribe, took the time to climb that monumental stairway one last time to add this final, tragic chapter. It was an act of profound responsibility to history, a duty to ensure that the story had an ending, that the world would know Tamariндito did not just fade away, but met its end on a specific, documented day. The hieroglyphic stairway stands today as a frozen moment of that departure, a story cut off mid-sentence, its final word not a proclamation of power, but a quiet, devastating admission of defeat. Nestled deep within the impenetrable heart of the Mirador Basin, a place so remote it was fittingly named Xultún, or distant stone, stands a temple that witnessed the ebb and flow of Maya power from a precarious but pivotal vantage point. This is the Temple of the Night Fire, the heart of a city that thrived not through conquest, but through a delicate and dangerous balancing act. Xultún's strategic location made it a crucial buffer state, a neutral zone meticulously positioned directly between the two warring superpowers of Decode and Calakmul. For centuries, Its survival depended on a form of high-stakes diplomatic agility, skillfully navigating the tensions between these colossal rivals, likely acting as a trade conduit and a diplomatic intermediary to avoid being crushed in their ongoing struggle. The very existence of this city, and the continual expansion of its central temple, is a testament to the shrewd political maneuvering required to endure in the shadow of giants. The temple itself is an architectural archive, its layers telling a story of resilience and adaptation. Unlike many structures built in a single frenzied period of construction, the Temple of the Night Fire shows clear evidence of being rebuilt, expanded, and modified over and over again across several centuries. Archaeologists have identified distinct construction phases, each new layer enveloping the last like the rings of a tree. This pattern of continuous investment suggests that despite the constant political pressure, Xultún not only survived but often prospered. Each new renovation was a statement of continued relevance and stability, likely funded by the wealth that flowed through its gates as a neutral meeting ground. The temple grew not as a boast of sudden victory, but as a slow, steady assertion of enduring identity, a stubborn refusal to be erased from the map by its powerful neighbors. One of its most captivating features is a unique, rounded structure attached to the main temple platform, believed to have functioned as a specialized observatory. While most Maya celestial observation was done from the summits of tall pyramids, this circular building suggests a more focused, perhaps even more intimate, form of sky watching. Its curved walls may have been designed to track the movement of specific stars or planets across a narrow window of the sky with enhanced precision. The name Temple of the Night Fire itself could be a direct reference to this function, hinting at the study of brilliant celestial objects like Venus, the evening star burning like a torch in the twilight, or even comets streaking across the heavens. This architectural anomaly highlights Xultún's intellectual independence, a center of learning that cultivated its own traditions of studying the cosmos. But the most haunting discovery at this remote temple is not found in its architecture, but inscribed on its monuments. As the classic period neared its catastrophic end, as cities across the Maya world were being consumed by drought, warfare, and famine, the scribes of Xultún carved a series of prophecies that send a chill down the spine. These inscriptions do not celebrate current kings or recent victories. Instead, they gaze far into the future, referencing a date deep in the future that would have had immense mythological significance to them, a time far beyond their own collapse. They speak of the completion of a grand cycle, a resetting of the cosmic clock that some interpret as an end of time, or a transformation of the world as they knew it. This is not a prediction of literal apocalypse, but a profound cultural concept rooted in their cyclical view of history. The Maya believed time was composed of repeating cycles of creation and destruction. The inscriptions at Xultún suggest that their wise men, their astronomers and calendar priests, watching their own world unravel, may have interpreted this collapse not as a final ending, but as an inevitable, if traumatic, phase in a much larger cosmic pattern. They seem to be asserting that even as their cities fell silent and their dynasty faded, the universe itself would continue, and a new cycle would eventually begin. It is a heartbreakingly intellectual response to collapse, an attempt to find meaning in the chaos by placing their own suffering within a vast, divinely ordered framework. The Temple of the Night Fire, therefore, stands as a monument not just to political survival, but to philosophical resilience, a place where Maya priests looked into the gathering darkness and found, in their deep understanding of time, a strange and solemn form of comfort. Leaving the philosophical resilience of Xultún behind, we now journey to the epicenter of raw, unadulterated power in the ancient Maya world. We travel to the dense rainforests of the Mexican state of Campeche, to the city that was the heart of the most formidable alliance network ever assembled, Calakmul, the city of the two adjacent pyramids. And it is here that we encounter a true titan of the ancient world, a structure so immense it staggers the imagination, the sprawling, 150-foot-high mass of stone known simply as Structure 2. This was not merely a temple, it was the physical manifestation of an empire's ambition, the command center of the dreaded Snake dynasty, and a symbol of dominance that cast a long shadow over the entire Maya region for centuries. To comprehend the sheer scale of Structure 2 is to grasp the depth of Calakmul's resources and organizational power. This pyramid is a behemoth, the largest in the Maya world by volume. Its base covers an area so vast it could easily swallow several football fields. The statistics are almost unbelievable. It is estimated that its construction required moving more stone than even the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza. Unlike the steep, towering pyramids of Tikal that seem to pierce the heavens, Structure 2 is a study in overwhelming breadth and layered complexity. It grew organically over hundreds of years, with each new ruler adding their own platform, staircase, and temple to the summit, effectively enveloping the works of their predecessors. The result is not a single elegant peak, but a massive, multi-tiered mountain of masonry, a sprawling architectural record of a dynasty's long and powerful reign. To stand before it is to feel the weight of history itself, the accumulated ambition of generations all compressed into one awe-inspiring facade. For decades, this giant was seen mostly from the outside, its interior secrets guarded by tons of rubble and time. That changed with recent, groundbreaking archaeological work. By tunneling carefully into the pyramid's core, researchers made a series of stunning discoveries that finally put faces to the names of the mighty Snake Kings. They uncovered a sequence of previously unknown royal tombs, burial chambers that had been sealed for over a millennium. Within these sacred spaces, they found the remains of Calakmul's elite, surrounded by offerings of breathtaking opulence. There were intricately painted ceramic vessels, delicate shell ornaments, and carved jade jewels, but the most breathtaking finds were the funerary masks. Crafted from hundreds of individually cut pieces of jade, each tessera painstakingly polished and fitted together. These masks were masterpieces of the lapidary's art. They were not intended to be realistic portraits, but idealized, eternal faces of green stone, transforming the deceased ruler into a godlike being, an immortalized version of the maze god ready for his journey through the underworld. The cool, eternal jade was believed to hold the essence of life and wind, preserving the king's spirit and identity for eternity. These masks are some of the most valuable artifacts ever recovered from the Maya world, not for their material worth, but for the window they provide into the profound spiritual beliefs and unmatched artistic skill fostered by the Snake dynasty. This temple was far more than a spiritual center or a royal mausoleum. It was the very engine of Calakmul's geopolitical strategy. From its summit, the Snake Kings and their advisors could look out over their vast domain, but their influence reached far beyond the horizon. Calakmul's power was not built on direct territorial control, but on a sophisticated web of alliances, orchestrated from the halls of Structure 2. This is where ambassadors from vassal states like El Perihuaca, La Corona, and Naranja would have been received, where marriage alliances were brokered, and where military campaigns against their arch-rival, Tikal, were planned. The temple was the symbolic anchor of this network. By compelling subordinate rulers to travel to this immense place, to ascend its daunting staircases and pay homage, the Snake Kings performed a powerful ritual of dominance. They physically and psychologically reinforced the hierarchy, demonstrating their supreme status at the apex of the Maya political world. The constant activity of envoys, the rituals of allegiance, and the flow of tribute goods jade, cacao, feathers, and obsidian would have made the plazas around Structure 2 a buzzing hub of diplomatic and economic activity, all feeding the prestige and power of the dynasty that called it home. Structure 2, therefore, stands as the ultimate expression of the Snake dynasty's long and calculated campaign for hegemony. It was a statement in stone, a declaration that their authority was both timeless and unchallengeable. For over 500 years, it was the center of a world, a constant presence while other cities rose and fell. Its immense size spoke of a population large enough and loyal enough to undertake such a backbreaking generational project. The rich tombs within proved the dynasty's wealth and its deep connection to the divine, and its strategic role as a diplomatic hub confirmed its reputation as the smartest and most powerful political player in the Maya world. Even as the dynasty's power eventually waned and the jungle began to reclaim its stones, Structure 2 remained, a silent and moss-covered testament to a time when the Snake Kings, from their throne atop this artificial mountain, dared to challenge the sun itself for dominance of the sky. From the epicenter of imperial power at Calakmul, our journey now takes us to a city renowned not for its scale, but for its breathtaking elegance and artistic refinement. Nestled in the foothills of the Chiapas Highlands, embraced by cascading waterfalls and a lush canopy, Palenque is often called the most beautiful of all Maya cities. And here, apart from the famous Temple of the Inscriptions, stands a smaller but no less fascinating structure, the Temple of the Count. This elegant building owes its name not to an ancient Maya lord, but to a flamboyant 19th-century adventurer, Count Jean Frédéric Maximilien de Waldeck. For 2 years, Waldeck made the temple's upper vaults his home, sketching the ruins and surrounding jungle in a romanticized style that helped capture the European imagination and fuel a craze for Maya exploration. His eccentric residency gifted the temple its modern identity, forever linking it to the dawn of Maya archaeology. Architecturally, the temple is a masterpiece of Palenque's unique style, immediately recognizable by its soaring, graceful roof comb. Unlike the solid, towering crests of temples at Tikal or Calakmul, which were often massive and densely decorated, Palenque's architects favored a lighter, more open design. The Temple of the Count's roof comb is a stunning example of this, constructed in a distinctive mansard style. This means it features a double slope on each of its sides, with the lower slope being steeper than the upper one. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a brilliant engineering solution. The design created a larger, more stable base to support the tall, perforated latticework of stone that rose above the temple's central corridor. This lattice effect, filled with open spaces, allowed the high winds that sweep down from the mountains to pass through the structure rather than fight against it, reducing the risk of collapse and giving the temple an ethereal, almost weightless appearance against the sky. But the innovation continues inside, beneath the feet of where the Count once set up his camp. The temple is equipped with what might be the ancient world's most sophisticated air conditioning system. A series of carefully engineered ventilation shafts and channels were built directly into the masonry of the temple's walls and foundations. These weren't simple holes. They were designed to harness the natural principles of convection and the area's specific wind patterns. Cooler air would be drawn in from openings at the structure's base, while warmer air would be expelled through vents higher up, creating a constant, passive circulation of air throughout the interior chambers. This clever system would have served a crucial purpose, regulating humidity and temperature to protect the temple's precious contents, which likely included delicate organic offerings, painted stucco reliefs, and codex books, all of which could be damaged by the region's intense damp and heat. The true purpose of this technologically advanced building, however, remains a subject of lively debate among scholars, centered on 2 compelling and contrasting theories. The first suggests it functioned as a highly specialized astronomical observatory. The unique alignment of its doorways, windows, and ventilation shafts could have been precisely calibrated to frame specific celestial events. A shaft might perfectly capture the light of the rising sun on a solstice, illuminating a specific marker inside, or a window could have been aligned to track the zenith passage of the sun, a day of immense significance when the sun is directly overhead and vertical objects cast no shadow. The sophisticated control of airflow would have been essential for such precise work, preventing heat haze from distorting the view of the stars and keeping the air inside the observation chamber clear and stable for the priest astronomers who worked within. The second, and more controversial, theory proposes that the Temple of the Count was not a place for looking at the sky, but for looking inward through intense physical purification. Some archaeologists argue that the layout, the ventilation, and the presence of a water channel nearby point to it being a ritual sweat bath, or pibna. In Maya culture, sweat baths were far more than saunas. They were deeply sacred spaces considered portals to the underworld, places of spiritual rebirth and physical cleansing. The ceremony involved heating stones in a fire, and then sprinkling them with water to create steam in an enclosed, often windowless chamber. The sophisticated ventilation system in the Temple of the Count would have been perfectly designed to manage this intense steam, allowing priests to precisely control the temperature and humidity levels during these powerful rituals. Participants would emerge from this ordeal purified, having symbolically sweated out their impurities and prepared themselves for communion with the gods. This theory transforms the temple from a place of cold celestial calculation to one of intense, visceral human experience, whether it was a laboratory for tracking the cosmos or a chamber for purifying the soul. The Temple of the Count stands as a profound testament to the Maya's ability to harmonize advanced engineering with the deepest needs of their spirit. Hidden for over a millennium beneath the layers of a larger pyramid, the Rosalila Temple at Capon represents one of the most breathtaking and perfectly preserved discoveries in all of Maya archaeology. It is a time capsule of staggering vibrance, a structure so complete it feels less like a ruin and more like a living building merely sleeping under the earth. The story of its discovery is a moment of pure archaeological magic. In the late 1980s, a team tunneling inside Structure 16, the massive acropolis that dominates Capon's center, broke through into a void. Their headlamps illuminated not darkness, but an explosion of color-brilliant, blood-red stucco covering every surface, adorned with sculpted masks of gods so pristine they seemed to have been finished only yesterday. The builders of a later era had not destroyed the old temple. They had performed a careful, ritual entombment, constructing a larger pyramid directly over it like a protective shell. This act of reverence is what gifted Rosalila its immortality, shielding its painted surfaces from centuries of tropical rain and sun, allowing us to see a Maya temple exactly as its worshippers did over 1400 years ago. The most overwhelming feature of Rosalila is its color. The entire structure is painted a brilliant, saturated Maya red, a pigment derived from iron oxides that held profound symbolic meaning. This was the color of life, of blood, and of the dawn. Against this vibrant backdrop, a complex narrative unfolds in sculpted stucco. The temple's facade is a tapestry of intricate, high-relief masks and figures, each one a masterpiece of artistry. The central deity, repeated across the building, is a stunning representation of the maize god in his aspect of youthful, resplendent beauty. He is shown with idealized features, his head emerging from the curling leaves of a corn plant, symbolizing resurrection and the cycle of life. Flanking him are the massive, animated masks of the mountain spirit, or wits, its gaping maw forming the temple's doorway. A powerful statement that to enter this space was to pass into the mouth of the sacred mountain and access the spirit world within. The entire effect is one of dynamic energy and spiritual power, a far cry from the mute, gray stone we usually associate with ancient ruins, but Rosalila's secrets extended beyond its awe-inspiring facade. Within the central doorway, archaeologists made another discovery that deepened our understanding of Maya ceremonial practice. Sealed inside the temple's inner sanctums, resting on the floor exactly where they were left during the final consecration ritual, was a collection of intact offering vessels. These were not simple clay pots. They were elaborate, lidded incense burners, some shaped like anthropomorphic figures or animals, others painted with intricate designs. Inside them, carefully placed, was the complete toolkit of a Maya priest: stingray spines for the bloodletting ritual, obsidian blades for sacrifice, bundles of mineral pigments for painting, and fragments of copal incense resin that still released a faint, sacred scent when first exposed to the air after 13 centuries. This was not a cache of treasure hidden away. It was a ceremonial scene frozen in time. It reveals that the temple itself was considered a living entity, and these objects were its vital equipment, left within it to empower the building and allow it to continue its spiritual function for eternity. The Rosalila Temple is the single most important key we have for unlocking the true appearance of the ancient Maya world. When we visit sites like Tikal or Palenque today, we walk among skeletons, the bare, limestone bones of what were once brilliantly polychrome cities. Rosalila is the flesh restored. It proves unequivocally that every Maya temple, palace, and pyramid was once a riot of color, with reds, blues, yellows, and greens covering every surface, making the cityscapes shine like jewels against the green jungle canopy. The sophistication of its stucco work, which required a precise mix of lime, sand, and water applied in layers over a stone core and then painted, shows an artistic tradition of the highest order. This was not mere decoration, It was a fundamental part of their spiritual language. The vibrancy of the colors, the dynamism of the sculptures, and the potency of the offerings left inside all combined to show us that Maya architecture was not static or solemn, but alive, pulsating with religious meaning and cosmic significance. Rosalila does not just show us what they built, it allows us to feel the powerful, living faith that inspired it. And now, we venture into the very cradle of Maya civilization, to the heart of a city that would become a legend. Within the sprawling metropolis of Tikal, a place synonymous with towering pyramids that scrape the sky, lies a much quieter, older complex known as the Mundo Perdido, or the Lost World. And here we find Temple 23, a humble yet revolutionary structure that whispers the story of how it all began. Built around 300 years before the Common Era, this pyramid is a true ancient, a foundational stone upon which 1,000 years of architectural genius would eventually be built. To stand before it is to witness the moment the Maya first dared to dream in stone, experimenting with forms that would define their world for centuries to come. What makes Temple 23 so extraordinary is its clear departure from the established norms of its time. While other early cultures in Mesoamerica were building simple, flat-topped platforms for rituals, the builders here were already thinking in 3 dimensions, pushing the boundaries of form and function. The pyramid itself is a broad, tiered structure, not yet the soaring needle-sharp peak of Tikal's later giants like Temple 4, but a clear and deliberate move towards that iconic shape. It represents a critical evolutionary step, a bridge between the low, horizontal stages of the pre-classic period and the vertical aspirations of the classic era. The very act of building upwards was a profound philosophical shift, a literal attempt to reach closer to the heavens, to narrow the gap between humanity and the gods they sought to appease and understand. This was more than construction, it was a declaration of intent, but the most captivating and enigmatic feature of this ancient complex lies not on the pyramid's summit, but on the great plaza that stretches out before it. Here, archaeologists discovered a highly unusual artifact for such an early date, a circular stone altar. In the Maya world, where almost every structure and monument is rigidly rectangular, this perfect circle is an astonishing anomaly. Its very shape marks it as something special, something set apart from the ordinary. Most altars were simple rectangular blocks used for offerings or as bases for carved stelae. This circular stone, however, appears to have had a far more sophisticated purpose. Researchers believe it functioned as a primitive but highly effective astronomical observatory, a solar marker of breathtaking simplicity and cleverness. The theory is that on specific days of the year, particularly the solstices and equinoxes, a priest or astronomer would use this altar in conjunction with the surrounding architecture. By aligning sight lines from this central point to the peaks of Temple 23 itself, or to other structures on the horizon, they could precisely track the sun's journey. The rising sun on the summer solstice might crest directly over the northern corner of the temple, while the winter solstice sunrise would align with its southern edge. This circular stone served as the fixed point, the center of their cosmic clock, allowing them to mark the passing seasons with unwavering accuracy. This was the Maya calendar in its most physical, nascent form, a practical tool that connected the cycles of the sun to the cycles of planting and harvest, embedding celestial order into the very fabric of daily life and religious practice. Temple 23 and its mysterious altar stand as a powerful testament to the Maya spirit of intellectual experimentation. This was not a culture that simply inherited and rigidly followed a set of architectural rules. This was a period of vibrant innovation, a laboratory of ideas where different forms were tested, refined, and either adopted or discarded. The circular altar shows a willingness to break from tradition to solve a practical problem. The evolving pyramid form demonstrates a continuous process of improvement and ambition. They were learning by doing, figuring out how to build higher, how to make structures more stable, and how to encode their understanding of the universe into the layout of their cities. The Lost World complex was their prototyping workshop, and Temple 23 was one of their most successful early models. This entire site captures a civilization on the very cusp of its golden age. You can feel the momentum building, The simple, functional platforms of the past were no longer enough to contain their growing theological complexity and political ambition. The rulers and priests of this era needed grander stages for their rituals, more impressive monuments to display their power, and more precise instruments to guide their society. Temple 23 is that pivotal moment frozen in time. It possesses the solid, ceremonial gravity of the old ways, yet it simultaneously points unmistakably toward the future, a future of immense celestial pyramids, intricate corbel vaulted temples, and hieroglyphic stairways that would tell their history for millennia. It is the architectural seed from which the mighty forest of Tikal would grow, a quiet beginning for one of the most dramatic urban landscapes the ancient world would ever produce. Leaving the foundational prototypes of Tikal's lost world behind, we now travel north, to the flat, sun-baked limestone plains of the Yucatan Peninsula, where a temple stands as a brilliant fusion of celestial engineering and deep, enduring faith. This is Dzibilchaltún, and its most famous structure is the Temple of the Seven Dolls, a building so architecturally unique it seems to belong to another world entirely. Unlike any other temple we have encountered, this one is crowned not with a solid roof comb, but with a distinctive cylindrical tower, a form that immediately signals its special purpose. But its true magic is revealed only on two specific days of the year, when the ancient stones align with the cosmos to perform a miracle of light that has drawn pilgrims for over 1,000 years. The entire design of the temple is a masterwork of intentional alignment, a precise astronomical instrument crafted from stone. The building is perfectly oriented so that its main doorway faces directly east. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, something extraordinary happens. As the sun crests the horizon, its rays shoot through the temple's eastern door, pass straight through a second doorway in the west, and illuminate the entire length of the main Sakbi, the raised white causeway that stretches out before it. For a few breathtaking moments, the pathway is flooded with a brilliant shaft of light, as if the sun itself is walking the road. This was no happy accident. It was a meticulously calculated demonstration of the Maya's profound understanding of solar cycles. The equinox, the day when light and dark are in perfect balance, was a time of immense power and significance. This celestial event likely marked the beginning and end of the agricultural season, a signal for planting or harvest, and a potent symbol of renewal and cosmic order. The temple served as the grand mechanism that made this invisible celestial event visible and tangible for the entire community, a public spectacle that reinforced the priest's role as an intermediary with the gods who controlled the sun. Yet, for all its celestial grandeur, the temple's name and its most haunting mystery come not from the sky above, but from the earth below. During excavations in the 1950s, archaeologists made a bizarre and unsettling discovery sealed within a small, hidden crypt beneath the temple's main floor. Carefully arranged, there were 7 crude, hand-modeled clay figurines. These were not the elegant, beautiful portraits of gods or kings we've seen elsewhere. These dolls are grotesque, almost frightening in their distortion. Each one is different, with twisted limbs, hunched backs, bloated bellies, and faces contorted in what appears to be agony or sickness. One figure has a grossly distended abdomen. Another seems to be covered in pustules or sores. They are visceral, unsettling artifacts that speak not of celestial harmony, but of very earthly suffering. Most scholars believe these 7 dolls are physical representations of diseased deities, or perhaps the personified spirits of specific illnesses that plagued the Maya world. In their cosmology, sickness was not a random occurrence but the work of specific, often malevolent, supernatural forces. These figurines were likely used in powerful healing rituals. A shaman, or Amen, might have invoked these spirits, perhaps even bargaining with them or attempting to trap their malignant energy within the clay forms to cure an afflicted person. The act of burying them beneath the temple floor was a profound ritual act of containment, sealing these dangerous forces away in the sacred earth, neutralized by the power of the holy site above them. This reveals a fascinating duality within the temple itself, a place dedicated to the life-giving sun and cosmic order on the surface, built directly atop a chamber holding the very embodiment of disorder, decay, and human suffering. This combination of celestial observation and healing ritual made the Temple of the Seven Dolls one of the most enduring pilgrimage sites in the entire Maya world. Its reputation as a place of miraculous cures and powerful magic was so strong that it survived the collapse of the classic Maya civilization and even persisted for centuries after the Spanish conquest. Well into the colonial period, Maya people continued to make secret journeys to this ancient temple, bringing offerings and prayers for the sick, performing rituals that blended their ancient beliefs with new Catholic influences. They understood this to be a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where the power of the equinox sun could burn away illness, and where the spirits of disease, though imprisoned, could still be appealed to for mercy. The Temple of the Seven Dolls stands as a powerful testament to the complete integration of the Maya worldview, where advanced astronomy and deep medicine were not separate fields, but intertwined expressions of a single goal: to understand the forces of the universe, both benevolent and terrifying, and to find a path of balance and healing within them. Our final journey takes us to a place that shattered the very foundation of how the modern world viewed the ancient Maya, transforming them from perceived peaceful stargazers into a complex civilization of warriors, artists, and dramatists of power. Tucked away in the lush rainforest of Chiapas, Mexico, the site of Bonampak is home to a relatively modest structure, known as the Temple of the Murals. From the outside, it is unassuming, a small building on a low platform that could easily be overlooked amidst the grander ruins of the region. But within its three small, windowless rooms lies arguably the most important pictorial record of the ancient Maya world, a vibrant, terrifying, and breathtakingly detailed chronicle of courtly life, brutal warfare, and solemn ritual that completely rewrote the history books. For centuries, a romanticized myth persisted that the Maya were a uniquely peaceful society, a civilization of gentle philosopher priests who were devoted to astronomy and mathematics, their cities silent ceremonial centers rather than hubs of political intrigue and military ambition. The discovery of the Bonampak murals in 1946 violently dispelled that myth. Here, spread across the walls and vaulted ceilings of all three rooms, is a narrative masterpiece of such visceral intensity that it leaves no room for doubt. The paintings are a sophisticated and sequential story, likely documenting the events surrounding the ascension of a young heir to Bonampak's throne, and they pull no punches in their depiction of royal authority. Room 1 sets the stage with a scene of opulent courtly life. The walls are teeming with elegantly dressed nobles, musicians, and officials gathered for what appears to be a presentation of the royal heir. The atmosphere is one of celebration, but it is a display of power as much as pageantry. The king and his court are adorned in brilliant white cotton cloth, elaborate feathered headdresses, and heavy jade jewelry, their wealth and status rendered in stunning detail. This is the Maya elite at their most refined, showcasing a highly stratified and sophisticated society where every gesture, every piece of attire, and every hierarchical position was carefully coded and understood. The narrative then takes a dramatic and violent turn in Room 2. The celebratory mood evaporates, replaced by the chaotic frenzy of battle preparation and its brutal aftermath. This is where the Maya peace myth died. We see a powerful, confident king, fully armored in a thick, padded cotton vest, preparing for combat. His warriors, faces set with determination, are shown engaging in a fierce melee against rival captors. The climax of this room is not the battle itself, but its consequence. A staircase is littered with the bodies of defeated enemies, while victorious Bonampak warriors present a group of naked, humiliated captives to their lord. One captive, slumped at the bottom of the steps, has blood streaming from his fingertips, a horrifyingly specific detail indicating his nails have been ripped out as a preliminary act of torture. This is not a sanitized glory of war. It is a raw, unflinching look at its terrifying reality and the brutal treatment of prisoners. Room 3 delivers the chilling finale to this story of power. The same captives from the previous room are now subjected to a gruesome public ritual of torture and sacrifice. One is shown having his fingers mutilated further, while others await their grim fate, their despair palpable. The scene then shifts to the culmination of this sacred violence, a ritual dance performed on the temple steps above. Lords wearing elaborate masks of gods dance in a trance-like state, while to the side, the royal family themselves participate in a solemn bloodletting ceremony, drawing barbed ropes across their tongues to offer their own blood to the gods. The entire narrative cycle comes full circle, connecting military victory and the capture of prisoners to the most fundamental Maya religious belief, that human blood and life were the ultimate offering required to nourish the deities and maintain the cosmic order. The murals argued that the king's right to rule was proven not just by his birth, but by his ability to provide this most precious commodity through warfare. Just when we thought we knew everything these murals could tell us, modern technology peered even deeper into their secrets. Recent advances in multispectral imaging have allowed conservators to see beyond the visible spectrum, revealing a hidden world of underdrawings and pigments that have faded from view over the centuries. This non-invasive technique uses different wavelengths of light to highlight carbon-based sketches and mineral compositions invisible to the naked eye. The results have been nothing short of revolutionary. The imaging revealed that the Maya artists first sketched their intricate compositions in delicate charcoal lines on the wet plaster, planning the entire complex narrative before a single drop of paint was applied. We can now see where they changed their minds, adjusting a figure's arm or the angle of a headdress, offering an intimate glimpse into the creative process of a master artist over 1,000 years ago. Furthermore, the technology has helped digitally restore colors that have been dimmed by time and grime, allowing us to appreciate the original, shocking vibrancy of the Maya blue backgrounds and the rich reds and yellows that made these scenes explode with life. The Temple of the Murals at Bonampak stands not as a static artifact, but as a living document, one that continues to reveal new chapters and deepen our awe for the civilization that created it, a people capable of both breathtaking beauty and uncompromising power. Moving from the vivid stories painted on walls to the very stones themselves, we uncover a layer of Maya genius that is often hidden in plain sight, their breathtaking architectural and engineering prowess. These temples were not just spiritually significant, they were monumental feats of technical skill, built to endure for eternity with a precision that continues to baffle modern engineers. Imagine achieving perfection without the wheel, without metal tools, and without pack animals. The Maya did exactly that, using little more than stone hammers, fire, water, and an almost supernatural understanding of their environment. Their mastery began with the very fabric of their cities, limestone. The entire Yucatan Peninsula is a vast shelf of this sedimentary rock, and the Maya learned to work with it in astonishing ways. To shape massive blocks for their pyramids, they employed a technique known as thermal shock. Workers would build hot fires directly against the limestone face they wanted to quarry. Once the rock was superheated, they would suddenly douse it with cold water. The dramatic temperature change caused the stone to fracture and split along clean, predictable lines, allowing them to extract huge, manageable blocks using only wooden levers and stone tools. This intimate knowledge of their material allowed them to turn the living bedrock beneath their feet into the building blocks of empires. But perhaps their most revolutionary invention was their complex, weather-resistant mortar. This was far more than simple glue. It was a sophisticated chemical recipe that has proven more durable than the stones it binds in many cases. The process started with the production of quicklime. They would gather lumps of limestone and roast them in enormous, carefully controlled kilns at temperatures exceeding 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit for days on end. This intense heat drove off carbon dioxide, transforming the rock into a highly reactive powder. When this powder was mixed with water, it created a slaked lime paste. But the Maya didn't stop there. They added secret ingredients to the mix, including natural tree saps and gums from local plants like the chucum and jabin trees. This created a mortar that was not only incredibly strong, but also possessed a degree of flexibility and water resistance. This flexibility was key, allowing the structures to shift and settle during earthquakes and tropical storms without shattering, while the water resistance protected the core of the pyramids from being dissolved by the relentless tropical rains. This structural resilience was matched by an intellectual one, demonstrated in their celestial architecture. The Maya were master astronomers, and they encoded their knowledge directly into the alignment of their cities. At the equinoxes, the serpent-like shadow slithers down the steps of El Castillo at Chichén Itzá. At the palace at Palenque, specific corridors framed the setting sun on the winter solstice. These alignments were not happy accidents. They were the result of painstaking, generations-long observation. Using nothing more than crossed sticks as a sighting device and markers placed on the horizon, Maya astronomer priests could track the slow precession of the stars and the cycles of the planets with breathtaking accuracy. They then communicated these precise angles to the master builders, who translated celestial mathematics into stone and mortar, ensuring their temples would forever serve as giant calendars, connecting the earth to the heavens. The engineering marvels extended to managing the elements, particularly water. In a land of torrential rainy seasons, managing runoff was critical to preventing catastrophic erosion that could undermine the foundations of their massive structures. The Maya developed intricate drainage systems that were both practical and symbolic. At the great city of Tikal, archaeologists have discovered a network of underground channels and culverts built from stone and ceramic pipes, designed to redirect rainwater from the plastered plazas and temple foundations into large, centralized reservoirs. These systems often incorporated beautifully carved stone gargoyles and zoomorphic spouts, transforming a practical necessity into a work of art. The water, so vital for life, was thus ceremonially channeled and collected, its power harnessed and respected. Perhaps the most haunting and least understood of their acoustic achievements can be found at the Great Ball Court of Chichén Itzá. The court is flanked by two massive parallel walls, and if you stand at one end and speak in a normal tone, the sound travels along the facing wall in such a way that a person standing at the opposite end, over 150 yards away, can hear you with perfect clarity. This whispering gallery effect is a stunning example of sonic architecture. Furthermore, a single clap produced in the center of the ball court generates a series of 9 distinct echoes that ripple back and forth, and these echoes are said to mimic the sound of the sacred Quetzal bird. The exact methods the Maya used to calculate and create these acoustic phenomena remain a mystery, suggesting an understanding of sound wave physics that we are only beginning to appreciate. These were not silent spaces for quiet contemplation. They were vibrant, resonant environments designed to amplify the power of ritual speech, the chant of priests, and the awe-inspiring sounds of the sacred ball game, making the spiritual experience truly immersive. To truly understand these stone giants, we must move beyond their architecture and step inside, into the smoke-filled darkness where their true purpose came to life. For the Maya, a temple was not a monument to be admired from afar. It was a living, breathing portal, a charged intersection where the human world touched the divine. Every ritual performed within its walls was a high-stakes negotiation with the gods, an effort to maintain the delicate balance of the cosmos itself, and the spiritual practices were as complex and layered as the structures that housed them. Perhaps the most profound and intimate of these rituals was the act of bloodletting, or chab. For us, the concept is shocking, but for the Maya, it was the ultimate offering, the highest form of piety a ruler could perform. This was not an act of simple pain, it was a sacred duty. The king or queen would prepare for days, fasting and purifying themselves in steam baths. In the temple's inner sanctum, away from all but the most trusted priests, they would perform the ceremony. Using a razor-sharp obsidian blade or the spine of a stingray, they would pierce their own tongue, their earlobes, or for men, the foreskin of the penis. The resulting blood would be collected on strips of bark paper, which were then burned in a ceremonial brazier. The Maya believed that royal blood was the most precious substance in the universe, saturated with kaya, or divine sacredness. As the blood-soaked paper burned, the smoke would curl upwards, a thick, scented offering. This smoke was not merely symbolic, it was a literal conduit. The ancestors and gods were believed to be starved for this vital essence, and the smoke from its burning nourished them, sustaining the cosmic order. But it also opened a doorway. In their weakened, blood loss-induced state, often enhanced by powerful hallucinogens, the ruler would experience vivid visions. They might see a great vision serpent uncoiling from the smoke, its gaping maw revealing the face of an ancestor who would deliver prophecies or grant legitimacy to their rule. This was the king's most critical job, to bleed, to suffer personally, so that his people might prosper. It was a direct, visceral communication with the other side, and it cemented their role as the primary bridge between humanity and the gods. Just as personal and intense were the rituals involving hallucinogenic enemas, a practice documented in their art and confirmed by residue found on ceramic vessels. Specific jars, often adorned with the image of a god holding an enema syringe, were used to administer a potent concoction. This mixture could include substances like the fermented juice of the balchet tree, morning glory seeds, or perhaps even potent tobacco extracts, all diluted in water. The rectum provided a far more efficient and intense pathway to altered states of consciousness than ingestion, allowing the shaman or ruler to achieve a profound trance almost instantly. In this state, they were believed to shed their human form and journey into the spirit world, to commune directly with deities, or to travel to the mythical places of creation. These rituals were not for public spectacle. They were deeply private, powerful tools for divine travel, undertaken in the dark, enclosed spaces of the temple to facilitate a spiritual voyage. In stark contrast, the ball game was a public spectacle of cosmic significance, a ritual drama enacted in the stone courts adjacent to temples. This was far more than a sport. It was a reenactment of the most important story in Maya mythology, the Popol Vuh. The game symbolized the endless struggle between the forces of life and death, light and darkness. The rubber ball, heavy and unpredictable in its bounce, represented the sun moving across the sky and through the underworld at night. The court itself was a model of the universe, with its long alley representing the Milky Way and its stone rings symbolizing portals to the otherworld. The players, often elite nobles or even captured kings, were stand-ins for the hero twins of the myth, who had famously defeated the lords of the underworld in a ball game. The outcome of the match held immense ritual weight. While some games were likely played for sport, the most significant ones were deeply religious events. The losing team, especially their captain, was not simply defeated. They were ritually sacrificed. This was not seen as a loss, but as the fulfillment of the cosmic story. Their decapitation mirrored the fate of the hero twins' father in the myth and was believed to ensure agricultural fertility, the rising of the sun, and the continuation of the cosmic cycle. The entire community would witness this drama, their cheers and gasps reinforcing the shared beliefs that bound their society together, all under the watchful gaze of the temple. This entire cosmology, from the personal vision quest to the public drama, was physically mirrored in the very design of the temples themselves. The Maya saw the universe as a three-tiered reality, and their architecture was a deliberate map of this spiritual geography. The temples were not built on flat ground by accident. Their foundations often incorporated natural caves or were built over deep, ritual Xultuns, man-made chambers dug into the limestone bedrock. These dark, cool, watery spaces represented Dzibilchaltún, the underworld, the realm of the dead and dangerous forces. It was the place of decay and potential rebirth, much like a seed in the earth. The massive, multi-tiered pyramid base that rose above this represented the middle world, the earthly realm of human existence, the world of trees, mountains, and daily life. Its broad stairs and vast plazas were the stage for the community's public rituals and political life. Finally, the temple sanctum at the very summit, often small, dark, and shrouded in smoke from burning copal incense, represented the upper world, the celestial realm of the gods, ancestors, and heavenly bodies. This was the White Flower Place, a realm of perfect order and harmony. When a Maya priest-king climbed the steep staircase of a temple, he was not just ascending a building, he was retracing the path of creation. He was moving symbolically from the dark underworld of the foundation, through the human world of the pyramid's body, and into the heavenly realm at the top. His journey mirrored the daily path of the sun god, who each night traveled through the terrifying underworld only to be reborn triumphantly at dawn. Every aspect of the temple, from its deepest foundations to its highest roof comb, was a constant, physical reminder of this cosmic order. a sacred machine designed to facilitate humanity's most critical task, maintaining the balance of the universe through prayer, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. Yet after centuries of staggering achievement, the vibrant heart of the Maya lowlands fell silent. One by one, the great cities were abandoned. The ceaseless hum of construction, the chanting of priests, and the bustling of plazas gave way to an eerie quiet, as the jungle began its slow, patient work of reclaiming stone and plaster. This was not a single, catastrophic event, but a slow unraveling, a fading that rolled across the region over decades. The mystery of why these magnificent temples were left to the elements is one of archaeology's greatest puzzles, and the answer is as complex and layered as the pyramids themselves. One of the most compelling lines of evidence points to a profound and prolonged climate catastrophe. Scientists drilling deep into the sediment of regional lakes, like Lake Chichencaneb in the Yucatan, have uncovered a chilling natural archive. The layers of mud tell a story of rainfall or the lack thereof. By analyzing the chemical composition and fossilized remains of tiny organisms in each layer, they can reconstruct ancient climate conditions with remarkable precision. The data reveals a devastating pattern, a series of intense, multi-decade droughts that struck between the years 800 and 930, precisely the period of the classic Maya collapse. These weren't just dry seasons, they were megadroughts, some of the most severe the region has seen in the last 7,000 years. For a civilization utterly dependent on consistent summer rains to fill their reservoirs and nourish their maize fields, this was an existential threat. The reservoirs that sustained massive urban populations like Tikal would have evaporated, turning life-sustaining water into a desperate currency. Famine would have been widespread, weakening the population and shattering the fundamental contract between the people and their rulers, who derived their power from the promise of ensuring abundance and communicating with the rain gods. This environmental crisis was almost certainly amplified by the Maya's own success. Their sprawling cities and booming populations placed an immense strain on the delicate tropical ecosystem. To feed millions, they practiced intensive agriculture, including sophisticated techniques like terracing and irrigation. But this constant demand likely led to widespread deforestation, as vast tracts of land were cleared for farming and to fuel the massive lime plaster kilns needed for their construction projects. Without tree roots to anchor it, the thin topsoil would have been quickly eroded by the violent tropical rains, leaching it of vital nutrients and leading to catastrophic soil exhaustion. The very act of building their glorious cities may have inadvertently degraded the agricultural base that supported them, creating a feedback loop of scarcity that left them uniquely vulnerable when the rains finally failed. As resources dwindled, the social fabric began to tear. The long-standing rivalries between city-states, once expressed in controlled warfare for captives and prestige, escalated into something far more desperate and destructive. Archaeological evidence across the Pitaxpatan region tells a grim story of this breakdown. At sites like Das Pilas and Aguetka, we find hastily constructed defensive walls built not around the city's periphery, but directly through palace courtyards and residential areas, suggesting a last-ditch, panicked effort to defend against an enemy at the gates. These fortifications are a far cry from the open, ceremonial plazas of earlier times. We also find layers of ash and soot, evidence of widespread conflagration. These weren't accidental fires. They are the burn marks of intentional sacking, the final, brutal acts in wars fought not for glory, but for survival. The elaborate alliance networks that once maintained a balance of power fractured under the strain, replaced by a desperate scramble for the last remaining arable land and functioning water sources. This atmosphere of chaos and suffering may have sparked a final, revolutionary upheaval from within. For centuries, the immense labor of the common people had supported the extravagant lifestyles of the elite, the pyramid building, the elaborate rituals, the artistic flourishes. The peasant class provided the food, the labor, and the tribute that made everything possible. But as the droughts persisted and the wars raged, the authority of the priest-kings would have crumbled. Their promises and rituals were now empty. The gods clearly were not answering. It is easy to imagine a widespread popular revolt against this ruling class, a throwing off of the enormous burden of their demands. The evidence is subtle, the lack of mass graves suggesting a dispersed population rather than a sudden massacre, but the concept is powerful. The people may have simply walked away from the gods who failed them, abandoning the grand cities to return to a simpler, more sustainable life in small, scattered villages, taking their traditional agricultural knowledge with them and leaving the stone symbols of a broken ideology to the jungle. Yet even as the political and economic systems collapsed, the deep spiritual significance of these places endured. While the great cities were largely deserted, many temples were never truly forgotten. Pilgrims continued to make arduous journeys to these powerful sites for centuries after their abandonment, well into the post-classic period and even after the Spanish conquest. At Tikal, offerings of ceramic incense burners have been found in the ruins of the great plazas, left there long after the last king had departed. The most striking example is the sacred island of Cozumel, home to the shrine of Ixchel, the goddess of fertility and healing. This site remained a major pilgrimage destination for Maya people from across the Yucatan for hundreds of years after the collapse of the inland powers. The temples themselves were abandoned, but the sacred geography of the land, the memory of the power inherent in those specific places, lived on in oral tradition, a testament to a faith that outlasted even the greatest of kingdoms. The collapse was not an ending, but a transformation, a dramatic and traumatic reordering of a world that saw the power shift from the interior to the coast, from divine kings to merchant elites, and from stone monuments to the enduring resilience of cultural memory. The story of how these silent, vine-choked temples were pulled from the abyss of time is a grand adventure in its own right, a tale that spans centuries and blends raw exploration with cutting-edge science. For generations, these cities were little more than local legends, whispered about by the Maya people who lived near them and dreamt of by a handful of outsiders who dared to believe the stories were true. The modern chapter of this rediscovery begins not with satellites or lasers, but with the sheer grit of two men, American diplomat and lawyer John Lloyd Stevens and English artist Frederick Catherwood. In the 1830s and 40s, they mounted a series of grueling expeditions into the heart of the Central American rainforest, guided by little more than rough maps and rumors. What they found surpassed their wildest imaginations. Catherwood, battling insects, heat, and the deep shadows of the jungle, would set up his camera lucider, a sophisticated drawing device, and meticulously render the astonishing ruins before him. His incredibly detailed illustrations, published in Stevens' best-selling books, offered the outside world its first undeniable proof of a magnificent lost civilization. They stood before the towering pyramids of Capan and Palenque, not as myth, but as stone-cold reality, and in doing so, they single-handedly founded the field of Maya archaeology. Their work ignited a spark of fascination that would draw generations of explorers into the jungle. For decades that followed, the search remained a painstakingly slow endeavor of hacking through dense undergrowth, following the clues of local chicleros, men who tapped rubber trees, and simply stumbling upon ruins by sheer luck. The role of these local guides cannot be overstated. Their intimate knowledge of the terrain was the single most valuable tool any expedition possessed. They led archaeologists to overgrown mounds that hinted at structures beneath, to caves holding ancient pottery, and to the very foot of temples whose names and histories had been utterly forgotten by the outside world. The process of excavation was brutal, manual labor. Teams would clear tons of earth and vegetation by hand, often revealing structures that were unstable and in danger of collapse. Every discovery was hard-won, and the broader picture of how these cities connected to one another remained a frustrating mystery. They were finding individual pieces of a vast puzzle with no idea of the overall image. The first true revolution in this process came not from the field, but from the library. For over a century, the beautiful, intricate hieroglyphs covering the stelae and temple walls were considered impenetrable, mere decorative calendars or astrological charts. The prevailing academic opinion was that the Maya were peaceful stargazers, not a people with a recorded history of kings, wars, and political intrigue. This belief was completely overturned by the brilliant, painstaking work of scholars like Tatyana Proskoryakov and Yuri Norisov. By cross-referencing glyphs on monuments at sites like Piedras Negras, they began to see patterns not of gods, but of people. They identified glyphs for birth, accession to the throne, and death. They deciphered royal titles and place names. Suddenly, the silent stones began to speak. A temple was no longer just a temple. It was the burial place of a specific king, a queen like Lady K-Able. A hieroglyphic stairway wasn't an abstract calendar. It was a detailed biography of a dynasty's rise and fall. This decipherment gave context to the architecture, transforming anonymous ruins into the known backdrops of human drama. Just as this linguistic door was swinging open, a technological one blew off its hinges. In recent decades, light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, has utterly transformed our understanding of the ancient Maya landscape. This technology involves mounting a laser scanner on an aircraft and flying it over the jungle. The lasers can penetrate the dense canopy of leaves, bouncing off the solid ground below and returning to the sensor. By subtracting the digital vegetation, researchers can create a detailed, three-dimensional map of the Earth's surface, revealing every wall, road, and pyramid hiding below. The results have been nothing short of miraculous. Where explorers once saw an impenetrable green wilderness, LiDAR reveals a meticulously engineered world. It has shown us that the Maya were incredible landscape modifiers, building vast networks of raised causeways, or sakbiab, connecting cities over astonishing distances. It has revealed enormous agricultural fields with complex irrigation systems, extensive terracing on hillsides, and defensive walls that speak of a far more militaristic society than previously believed. Most importantly, it has uncovered thousands of previously unknown structures, proving that the Maya civilization was vastly more populous and interconnected than we ever dreamed. LiDAR allows us to see the forest and the cities, finally comprehending the breathtaking scale of their achievement. This incredible power of discovery has ignited a complex and vital ethical debate within the field of archaeology: to excavate or to preserve. When a temple is unearthed, it is immediately exposed to the elements. The very act of saving it from the jungle begins a new race against time, as sun, rain, and wind start to erode the delicate stucco facades, fade the vibrant paints, and weaken the ancient mortar. A beautifully restored temple like Capan's Rosalilla is a wonder to behold, but its long-term preservation requires constant, expensive conservation efforts. Many argue that the safest place for an ancient structure is exactly where it has survived for 1,000 years, buried and protected by the earth itself. This has led to a practice known as selective excavation, where only key areas of a site are uncovered to answer specific research questions, while the vast majority is left undisturbed for future generations who will have even better technologies to study them. It is a humbling acknowledgement that we are not the end point of discovery, but merely a link in a chain, with a responsibility to protect these fragile treasures not just from nature, but from our own well-intentioned interference. The story of their rediscovery is therefore ongoing, a careful balance between the burning human desire to know and the profound duty to protect.